Good evening, everybody. It's good to see all of you tonight. Let's begin by singing number 290. 290. We'll sing a couple songs, and then Lee Ronk's going to lead us in prayer, and then we'll have our devotional thought. 290. 290. Lord, the light of your love is shining in the midst of the darkness shining. Jesus, light of the world, shine upon us. Set us free from the truth you have bring us. Shine on me. Shine on me. Shine, Jesus, shine. Fill this land with the Father's glory. Blaze, Spirit, blaze. Set our hearts on
so thankful for today, and we're so thankful for your love and grace. Father, we're just so thankful for all the blessings that we receive each day. And we ask you to watch over us and be with us each day. And Father, we just hope and pray that you will help the children and their parents that were in the shooting this afternoon in Minnesota. And Father, comfort them as only you know how. And Father, we're so grateful for your love and all the things that you do for us. And Bobby, be with us tonight and help us to be able to take something from the lesson and take it and apply it to our lives and be better Christians because of it. In Jesus' name we pray.
Good evening. Have just a little thought for us tonight before we go to our Bible classes. I don't know if y'all remember a few years ago, John Denver, the guy who sang Rocky Mountain High and What Country Roads Take Me Home. Those are the songs I think he is most famous for. There's a whole bunch of others as well, but you might remember that a few years ago he died in a plane crash. And the plane that he was flying was they used the term experimental plane, but it wasn't like an experiment that was being tried. It was just not the traditional, normal type plane that was like you would maybe expect to see flying over us, just a smaller engine plane. The plane itself was designed to have 2 gas tanks, and the design was to have further travel, to be able to do your trips or whatever you were doing. And so he was flying this plane and flying it out, and I think in Colorado. I don't remember exactly where the crash took place, but that was the direction that he was flying. And he noticed as he was flying that the gas needle was going down pretty quick or was getting low. So no worry, he had 2 gas tanks. And so he goes to fix the tank and switch the valve to the other tank. Well, the design of the plane was such that the switch was directly behind the pilot's seat. Obviously, you're not supposed to do it in flight. It was a situation where you would flip over or you would turn around and handle it and keep going, but he was doing it in flight. The theory is that in his process of turning and trying to get the switch that was in a really awkward place to get it to switch over, his foot might have hit one of the rudders or turned the plane, and he was such an inexperienced pilot he couldn't get it fixed before he crashed. Now here's the interest, not that that's not interesting, but here's the next level of this conversation. When they did the investigation, if he would have been able to successfully switch to the other gas tank, guess what was not in the other gas tank? Yes. How could you take a plane up and not check to make sure you had enough fuel? How could you not do that? Now, it's really easy for me to stand here and be critical, having never gotten on a plane before, right? I do realize the irony in that moment. But also would say it's really easy for me also to think, how many times have I taken for granted things that really seem now to be extremely important? Whether it's my commitment to God, whether it's in the way I've raised my children, whether it's in the way I treat my wife, whether it's in the way that I respond to sad situations or great situations, things that are extremely important and yet take them for granted. I don't think it all the way through. I don't get into it, and I'm going to even up the ante further and go, what about our salvation? Do we take it serious? Are we focused on what was done for us? Or do we kind of treat it like, well, it's always there. It's always going to take care of me, until we make that mistake. The Hebrew writer says this in Hebrews chapter 2. I'm going to read the first 3 verses, or at least part of the 3rd verse. But as he's writing, he's saying, basically, pay attention. Watch out for what we're doing. He says, therefore, we must pay much closer attention to what we've heard, lest we drift away from it. Pay attention lest you drift away from it. For since the message declared by angels proved to be reliable, and every transgression or disobedience received a just retribution, here's the part. How shall we escape if we neglect such a great salvation? It's that important. It's that big a deal to keep those things that are important to us, to pay attention lest we drift away. Tonight, before we go to class, I have just a few announcements to make. Actually, I say a few, that's not true. I have a lot of announcements to make. We have a lot of folks who are dealing with health issues. Some you know about, some you just have heard their names mentioned maybe, but a lot of these are extremely serious, dealing with cancer and surgeries and things like that. So I want to read through these. Actually, I'm going to reverse. I'm going to go through the dates of things, and then I'll read through the sick, those who are in need of prayers. Next Wednesday, I believe, September the 3rd, after the PM service, will be an Elders, Deacons, Ministers meeting on September the 3rd. And then the Ladies' Bible class with Leanne Braddock will begin back on September the 10th at 11 a.m. The other dates this month are the 17th and the 24th. Also, the Tablet class will be on Sunday, September the 21st at 4 o'clock. And they plan to attend the nursing home on September the 24th, the end of next month. Those are the announcements as far as dates of things going on. Is there anything that I might have overlooked on dates? Here are the list of people and what they are dealing with tonight. Betty Delaney is still having shoulder pain from the recent procedure. She goes back to the doctor on Tuesday of next week and hoping that that pain can be taken care of. I don't know if you've heard this or not. Hayden Ellis, basically, I got a cut on his arm, which sounds really simple when I say it that way, but ended up having surgery because of it to repair tendons and nerves. Everything went well. He is recovering at home right now, but we'll continue to remember him. Madison is with us tonight, still dealing with blood pressure issues with the pregnancy. Nudie Bowles is having health issues. They're running tests soon, and definitely want to remember her and her battle that she's got now and ahead. Sarah Agee's sister, Rita Casey, wife of Nikki, had surgery was going to be postponed. Katie Mansfield has surgery scheduled for Friday of this week. We want to remember her in our prayers. Jim Tracy is the nephew of Mary Jean Good. Is having stomach cancer. He's in ICU at Vanderbilt. Brady Moore is the son of Frank Moore, dealing with cancer. Keith Billingsley from the community is having cancer as well. Jane Ragsdale still dealing with health issues and has a doctor's appointment next Tuesday to deal with some of that. Miss Eimer Heath, fallen and fractured her hip, and has surgery on Tuesday and is doing well. And Miss Lillian Buckingham attends church services with us on Sundays. She's having surgery tomorrow to help with, and I don't know the exact details of all, but some of the breathing issues that she's been dealing with, and hopefully will help her with that. So is it an outpatient or will she be, not sure, just no surgery? Okay. Yes, ma'am. Okay, well, that's great news. Brady's, you did put it on. I didn't keep reading. Yeah, it is on here. The cancer is in remission. That's good news. Thank you for correcting me on that. Anything else that I might have overlooked? All right. At this time, you are dismissed to your classes. So tonight, Robert Shannon is going to be teaching our class. Do you want the lapel? Or do you? Okay. And so I was told to make this announcement. The reason that Hayden got hurt was Andrew's fault. So just thought I'd pass that on to you guys.
Hear that okay? Y'all hear that in the back? There? How's everybody doing tonight? Get my notes situated. Oh, the most important thing, my glasses, so I can read them. Had to make the print a lot. I think I made it on most of them big enough. When Bobby said something to me about teaching tonight, I was trying to think what I was going to talk about, and had a couple of things come to mind. One of them is something I've been thinking about. I told Bobby, I said, been thinking about it for a while, and then I told Hunter last week, I said, what you talked about, I said, you're brave to take that lesson on. And I told him the same thing. I'd been thinking about a lesson for a while, but I just ain't got brave enough to do that one. So tonight I'm doing a different one, something in the past I've talked about before, but I've changed it up a little bit, a few different things, a few different thoughts on it. But I'll start tonight. I'll say I appreciate Brooks. I thought that I was going to be working today, and wasn't for sure that I could have been late. And turned out I didn't have to, but I hit up Brooks Sunday morning, said if he had something maybe that he would have prepared just in case that luck would happen, it would hit that way that I was running late. But I appreciate him being ready. Start off by telling you a little story. Years ago, there was this lady, and she lived up in the mountains of Kentucky, and pretty good ways up in the mountains. And as she got older, she decided it was time that she was going to move on down closer to town and in the edge of town in a more urban area. And so she did, and she'd been living there a little while. Well, one day she ended up having a fire in the house. So she, of course, grabs the telephone, and it was still one of those back then that, you know, the thing that hung on the wall with the little cord on it instead of what you would grab out of your pocket. And she called the fire department. And they said, fire department, ma'am, can we help you? And she said, yes, sir. She said, I got a fire in my house. They said, well, okay, where at? So where's it at? She said, it's in the kitchen. They said, okay, ma'am, said, but how do we get to the fire in the kitchen? She said, well, you can either come in the back door from the back porch, or you can come in through the front, whichever you prefer. And the fire chief answering the phone said, no, ma'am, said, how do we get from here at the fire station to your house where the fire is? She sat there for a few minutes, and she said, ain't you got one of those big old red trucks? A little bit of a communication problem, wasn't it? She just wasn't getting her point across. You ever been there? When I first started work, I hit that all the time. I remember coming to Crockett County, and it wasn't a road address. It wasn't, here's where my farm is. It was, you go down the road, and where that big old tree used to be in the field to the right, at the intersection is where you turn. I remember when we went to cut our utilities on at Crockett Mills, we told them the address, and they looked at us kind of funny, and they said, and we told them where it was. They said, oh, that's the old Nettle House, okay. And that's how it got turned on. That's been a few years ago, but still. So we've all run into that. But the thing about this was, this lady, she needed some help, and she needed it pretty bad. The house was on fire, but she was having trouble with her communication. All the years that I went up and taught our cadets at the academy, one thing that I tried to really tell them the importance of was their communication when they were working, especially in times when they were checking out with their dispatcher on the radio, especially in times of a stressful situation, because that dispatcher is their link. That is their link to safety, to survival. And I had took actually from 911 dispatch, a recording where they keep them for so long, where I had checked out with a vehicle about 1 o'clock in the morning down on Horns Bluff. Any of you been to Horns Bluff where the tower used to be? It's a long way down there. And not a street light for about 2 miles, especially at midnight, 1 in the morning. So I had checked out, and I thought that would be something good for them to hear, these new people that had never done anything like that, just to think about the importance of being able to communicate with your dispatcher. Well, my dispatcher said, you know, Robert, said, what would be good is if you actually made a video of up there from the road, driving down there, and just how long it takes, or how far back you were, and let them watch that while you played that recording of that 911 or the recording of the radio dispatch from the sheriff's department when we were talking back and forth. And so I did that, and you know, as you listen to that, something that seems to be, it's only 7 or 8 minutes long, when you sit there and listen to it, it's only 7 or 8 minutes long, but when you're there, it's a lot longer. And I played that and trying to impress the importance of that. And you could really see on their face as they watched that. And the importance was being specific, telling them under something that could be stressful, the information you need to get out, because your safety could depend on it. So I say that tonight, and those things to say this to start off. How is our communication with God? Are we keeping in touch? Are we praying on a regular basis? How often do we talk to Him? Because He is our link, isn't He? So tonight, what I'd like to talk about is what I would call the power of prayer. And when I talk about the power of prayer and talk about prayer, as important as our prayers are for before we have a meal, before we go to bed, those things, I want to dig or go much deeper than that. And let's get and talk about the type of prayers that we really get into or we should think about and the power that they have. And we just talked about the remission from cancer, power of prayer. As we talk tonight, feel free to chime in, but how many people, how many of you, and I'm going to bet each one of you have at some point, have had that prayer answered in just the right time or in a time of need, right? Sickness, all of us can reference that, right? When something's bad, either our personal life, our marriage, our health, a friend's health. Can you remember or can you think about, does this not show how God hears and responds to our prayer? And it reinforces the faith and hope that prayer can bring. Anybody know one of the first time prayer was mentioned in the Bible? Any ideas? Little hint, it's first time, first book, beginning of time. from what I found, Genesis 4 and 26 is actually when people began to call upon